Well, CEO of Microsoft, Satya Nadella, what a great honor it is to have you here with us today. Talk to us about the refreshment you've made of Microsoft. You recently put out a book, about a year ago, less than that, called Hit Refresh. Are you proud of the way in which Microsoft has refreshed under your leadership? And where do you want it to stand at the moment? Is it where you need the company to be?
First of all, thank you so much, Caroline, for having me. It's an interesting question because when I've been at Microsoft all my life, pretty much, and I was a consummate insider who became a CEO in 2014. And the real question I had was, what are, in fact, the enduring pillars that are going to help us as a company continue to be relevant, continue to thrive? And I sort of came quickly to the conclusion that the two areas that I needed to focus on was that sense of purpose. And interestingly enough, our refresh comes from going all the way back into our own deep history. Because, if I talk about our sense of purpose and mission as empowering people and organizations all over the planet to achieve more, it's a set of words that inform everyday decision making for us. But it comes from the very first product that Paul and Bill created in 1975, which is the basic interpreter for the Altair. Right there, for me, lies the story of all that needs to be known about Microsoft, which we create technology so that others can create more technology. And so we are lucky to be a software company at a time where every part of our lives and our societies and our economies are being shaped by digital technology. But we needed to be much more comfortable in who we are in terms of our identity, in terms of empowering others. So that's sort of, I think, a key part of what we had to do in terms of our own refresh.
I think what's interesting in your mission statement is it's every person in every organization on the planet. How lucky are you to be a United States-based company at the moment, with the geopolitical situation as it is, to be able to serve organizations that aren't within the US at the moment, amid the time of trade tensions, for example?
I mean, it's actually, in fact, I think about people and institutions people build to outlast them, and I think about this globally. That's the three key things that we always think about when we say empowerment and empowering. Being an American company, in fact, I always say that we are a multinational company that is an American company. So we are fundamentally dependent on and also proud of the American values and the trust in American institutions and values that the world has. And so clearly that has served us well. And quite frankly, even today, I think they serve us very well because I think our form of government, our form of democracy, with all of the debate we have, our ability to be able to set an example for what is a place where a lot of people of diverse backgrounds can come together, have a debate, and move and make progress, I think is what makes America unique. And us being born in that culture is what gives us credibility. And of course, we can't take any of this for granted, either as a nation or as a company, and we have to earn it every day. And somebody described trust is this formula, which is it's about having values that are consistently applied every day or over time, and that's what engenders trust.
Are the trade tensions affecting your business, though, do you think?
In trade tensions, I think we're going through this phase where everybody has recognized that, let's call it the phase of globalization, has not created equitable growth in all parts of the world or in any country to all parts of the society. So every country is re-looking at what are their relations around trade that help them thrive, because that's key. I mean, I think every country will put their country's interests first and look at what makes most sense. And what is it that's our responsibility as a multinational company is to sort of say, what are we contributing in each country? How are we making small businesses more productive, or public sector more efficient, or multinationals in that community country more competitive? If we do that, we are good. If we don't, we have a challenge, because I think long-term stability for us comes from our ability to create more surplus and more opportunity outside of what we do.
Talking about trust and talking about the way in which you're helping serve businesses, you've made a big push into, of course, artificial intelligence. It's the AI, we all want to talk about it when we're discussing technology. Ethics is wrapped up in that, and the way in which decisions are made, biases are sometimes programmed in. How are you tackling that? Have you been surprised by the limitations or the frustrations within AI at Microsoft?
I mean, it's a very, very important topic. In some sense, we come at it, I would say, in three parts. The first is, just like any other technology, I think we need to have a set of design principles that are used and practiced every day by our product makers and designers as we create new products that are AI-driven. And we have these 6 principles around fairness, robustness, privacy, security, inclusiveness, and transparency that we practice. They're not these abstract things, but every day we need to practice. And in practicing them, we also have to really, I would say, make the software engineering as it relates to AI more sophisticated. You brought up bias. For example, when you have a language model that's trying to make some decisions, that model usually learns from, in fact, human language that's out there in the wild. And we know that human language in the wild has biases. So we need to, in fact, have technology that can help these artificial intelligence models to get debiased. Data is important. We need the lineage of data needs to be really carefully thought through. So we are doing a lot of work in even building, I'll call it the tools that allow the practice of AI more robust. And lastly, ethics. We have a multidisciplinary body inside the company that is available to every product team and every leader and every decision maker that we use so that we are making sure that the technology that we build and its uses are being ethically governed by our enduring values.
Have you had to turn down companies' contracts because it hasn't always sat well with your ethics groups internally?
Absolutely. I mean, there are times, in fact, in all, even prior to AI, we've always sort of had these, principles. We've now perhaps gone a couple of steps further in having more of a process around it, where we are very, very clear that if there is any project that we get involved in that doesn't sit well with our values, we don't do them. And that's sort of as simple as that.
It's an interesting time because, of course, there is a fierce fight at the moment, or competitive instinct, to win a certain contract coming from the Pentagon. It's called JEDI. Google has stepped away from that competition, citing ethics in some way. Is it something that you've discussed internally? How do you feel about the Pentagon contract and how important it is to Microsoft?
I mean, first of all, I'll just talk to Microsoft, and I'm not going to talk about the specific contract but at Microsoft, for all of our existence, we've always had Department of Defense as a customer, and many other federal agencies. In fact, tomorrow we have our government summit where we're going to talk about everything that we're doing, from the Department of Labor to the Department of Agriculture to FEMA. And the Veterans Affairs and so on. So because I think we are broadly investing in what is our competitive differentiation of bringing cloud technology and our edge technology, which I think is more and more relevant to more and more of our taxpayer dollars being spent well, so that we can get more efficiencies out of the IT infrastructure that needs to power all of these institutions. So we are very, focused on making sure we bring the best technology and compete in any of these contracts that get put out for competitive bid.
Does it ever, with the focus on security, which must be in front of mind when you're serving anything federally, whether you're serving the government, how much do you think there is a focus at the moment, enough of a focus on security, and then you as a company have managed to find midterm election potential attacks coming from the likes of Russia? How are you looking at cybersecurity? How are you ensuring that you're at the cutting edge? And is it tackleable at the moment?
I mean, I think that some of the best work that we're doing when it comes to even AI is to really help with the cybersecurity posture. I mean, in fact, I always say this, which is the most important thing that we as a company can do and have as an asset is our cybersecurity or operational security posture. We have something like 6.5 trillion security events that we see, 450 billion logins a month across all of our properties, 1.2 billion devices we scan, maybe a couple of billion malware we inspect. So all that has to be converted into operational security and operational security health for all our customers. I mean, a good example of that is what happened with Strontium. Basically, we saw that attacker group was attacking some of the folks in the Senate and some of the affiliated groups with the Republican Party and with phishing attacks. And so we realized that we needed to get hold of those domains. And this is where it's not just about the technology, but it's even the policy work we did, and with working with the legal infrastructure to be able to transfer those domains and then sinkhole the traffic. And another example is, in fact, nowadays cyber criminals are being very precise, or should I say, targeting small businesses. And that's a big issue because consumers and small businesses suffer the most when it comes to cyber attacks. And this was a group called EarthSniff, or an attack called EarthSniff, which was attacking small businesses in Johnson City, Tennessee, and we were able to detect this and get rid of it on first sight, which is really one of the big challenges of AI. And so we're doing work there as well as in IoT, because the next big security attack is not going to come from your conventional email being compromised or a computer endpoint. It's going to come from the HVAC system. So 9 billion microcontrollers are shipped in the world, and we really now have with Azure Sphere a silicon design as well as a security service and a secure operating system that help us ensure that all microcontrollers going forward can be secured.
Talking there about software issues and hardware issues and safety. We've of course seen a Bloomberg Businessweek piece which has looked about the concerns of supply chain strength. Is this something that you think is fully secure when you look at Microsoft and can be going forward when we have such strength of attacks, as you say, that you keep picking up on?
Yeah, I mean, look, when it comes to operational security, including, I'll call it silicon supply chain or software supply chain, it's all about every day being in the gym and practicing. And in our case, in this particular incident, we're very confident that we have no exposure, but we've got a lot of people dedicated to it, a lot of technology dedicated to it, a lot of rigor and process dedicated to ensuring our supply chains, as I said, both silicon and software, to be secure.
Wrapped up with the cybersecurity conversation is that of privacy. Do you think the legislative agenda is where it should be, regulation is where it needs to be when it comes to privacy of individuals' data and when it comes to the security of company data?
I mean, it's a great set of questions, but we're already living in a world where, for example, I think the secular movement around individual data is that you should think of privacy as a human right. And GDPR out of Europe, in some sense, legislates that. And so we've done a lot of work implementing that in our products, and we have taken some of the rights from GDPR and made it available globally. And so I think that this is something that the United States will look at. I know California has looked at it. We hope that there's more of a national privacy law, because I think we don't want increased transaction costs that in fact are going to harm more of the small businesses, not large companies like Microsoft. But if you really want a level playing field, I think having a legislative framework that reduces transactional costs and even causes new entrepreneurs to be able to adopt it as a very important thing. The other one I would say is Cloud Act. I think the United States, I'm very pleased to see us, because after all we had to go to the Supreme Court and fight our own government on this case multiple times, but we did, in a bipartisan way, work with the legislative bodies to get a Cloud Act passed. And it's fantastic, because I think that really creates a new equilibrium of how nations can balance their need for privacy on one end and national security on the other end. And this is something that I'm hoping that will now be bilateral deals between the United Kingdom and the United States and other governments, which I think is very needed.
Satya, you helm a fascinating company because it is more than 40 years old, as you were on stage talking about. It's been through its education process. It's looked at regulators over the years. It's evolved. It's made sure that it's now still one of the most valuable companies in the world, cutting on $1 trillion. How do you look at some of the other big technology giants that are grown in the US and see them having to evolve and catch up in some ways to some of the charges and arguments and indeed resolutions that you've had to find in your past? What experiences can you give to them? Do you think they're all dealing with it in the right way as they evolve?
I can only speak for our own experience and what we are trying to do. And I think we as an all-up tech industry, I don't say this as sort of some kind of a terms of competition between us. I think all up, when I look back in our own history between, say, 1975 to now, technology and its importance in our societies and in our economies has gone through a sea change. The tech industry itself is just 5% of our GDP, and yet I think its influence on the rest of the 95% is far greater than it ever has been in our history. And so therefore I think all of us, including Microsoft, and starting with us, and is to be comfortable knowing that we will be held to a different standard. And that's what I think about as Microsoft, and how, everything from what's our operational security posture to what is our ethics, how are we going to, in some sense, even go and ask for regulation, where I think it'll create more of a rule of law and a framework for us to make progress, especially in liberal democracies. So I think that these are all the places where there needs to be a level of maturity way beyond, I think, day-to-day competition.